Tyrannosaurus rex. The name itself is a synonym for power, a 7-ton machine of muscle and bone that ruled the prehistoric world with an absolute iron. For a century, we've been sold a myth, a cinematic monster that roared at the heavens, invincible and cold-blooded. But what if that legend is a mirage? What if the most feared predator in history spent every waking second in a state of absolute bone-deep torture? Today, we're not looking at a movie monster. We are opening the secret medical file of a biological tragedy, a king whose crown was made of fire and whose throne was a bed of thorns. The commercialization of history began with a shockwave. In October 1997, the Field Museum of Chicago paid a then unthinkable $8.36 million for Sue, the most complete T-Rex ever found. At the time, we thought that was the ceiling. We were wrong, because in 2020, the ceiling didn't just break, it evaporated. Another king, known as Stan, was put under the hammer. The final bid, a soul-crushing $31.8 million. And here is the terrifying truth you need to know before we go any further. Today, history is being held for ransom. As of 2026, approximately 71 scientifically significant T-Rex specimens are locked away in private mansions and billionaire foyers, while only 61 remain in public museums. When a fossil enters a private vault, its story is ripped out of the book of Earth. Science depends on shared evidence, the bone microstructure, the isotopic signatures of ancient blood. A T-Rex in a private living room is a silent trophy, a story we are no longer allowed to read. But one king chose to stay and speak. Sue, standing nearly 4 meters tall at the hip. She was a titan, but her bones reveal that this massive frame was actually a prison. Look at these jagged, circular pits in her hand bones. These aren't battle scars from a rival. They are the jagged footprints of gout. The king had become a victim of his own elite diet. To maintain that massive body, he was trapped in a cycle of high-protein consumption that flooded his own blood with uric acid. Every movement of those joints was a scream, a burning sensation like thousands of hot needles stabbing into the marrow. In this deep dive, we are going to explore the darkest corners of the Cretaceous. We'll see how the tyrant king was forced into cannibalism just to survive his own pain. We'll discover why his prey were walking through the swamps with terminal cancer, and will reveal the 2026 breakthrough that proves the king never truly left us. He's just waiting in your backyard. If gout was the king's internal fire, his jaw carried the marks of an invisible executioner. For years, museum visitors looked at these smooth holes in Sue's mandible and saw victory, bite marks from a legendary duel. But modern pathology has looked closer. These aren't battle scars. They are wreckage of a parasitic invasion. A microscopic monster, similar to the ones that kills modern hawks and pigeons, was eating the king from the inside. It started as a raw, necrotic swelling in the back of the throat. Every swallow became a task of immense pain. In its final stages, the infection would have made it impossible for the most powerful hunter in history to eat. Imagine that tragedy. A 6-ton predator capable of crushing a car, slowly starving to death because of a microscopic organism had turned its own mouth into a battlefield. But there was a reason the king was so aggressive. He wasn't the only ghost in the woods. For 80 years, we believed that small, slender Tyrannosaur skeletons were just teenage T-Rexes. We called them juvelines. We thought the king started as a fast, long-legged sprinter before turning into a heavy bunter. That belief shattered in October 2025. The final analysis of the famous dueling dinosaur fossil confirmed what some had feared. Nanotyrannus was real. The differences were impossible to ignore. Nanotyrannus had more teeth, sharp, blade-like knives instead of the king's banana-shaped bone crushers. It had larger, functional arms, and most importantly, bone histology, the study of growth rings, showed these animals were 20-year-old adults at half the size of a T-Rex. This changes everything. The Cretaceous wasn't just a kingdom. It was a war zone of two different philosophies. T-Rex was the heavy operator, a mountain of muscle that relied on ambush and pure explosive force. And beside him lived the Nanotyrannus, a lithe, agile assassin that hunted the things the king was too slow to catch. But how did a king crippled by gout and choking on parasites still manage to deliver the most powerful strike in Earth's history? A strike that could literally make bones explode. To understand that, we have to look at the physics of the death blow. In the movies, T-Rex is a track star, chasing down jeeps at 40 miles per hour. But biology has a different, much more terrifying plan. For an animal battling bone infections and the agonizing hot needles of gout in his feet, a long-distance sprint was a death sentence. Computer models from 2025 confirm that an adult king weighing 8 tons likely topped out at just 12 to 18 miles per hour. Yes, you heard that right. A fit human could actually outrun the king of dinosaurs. But don't let the limp fool you. T-Rex wasn't a marathon runner. She was a heavy operator. She didn't need to outrun you. She just needed to get close. T-Rex evolved the ultimate ambush strategy. She used her super senses, vision, 13 times sharper than humans, to track prey from 6 kilometers away. She waited, motionless, patient. When the moment came, she delivered the death blow. While her ancestors used thin, blade-like teeth to slash and pull, T-Rex had lethal bananas, thick, conical teeth designed for one thing: total structural failure. Her bite force reached a staggering 57,000 newtons. To put that in perspective, that's like having an entire African elephant standing on a single tooth. This force didn't just cut meat, it made solid bone explode. We know this because of the coprolites, fossilized dung that are packed with shattered bone fragments. T-Rex didn't just eat, she processed her prey like an industrial crusher. And she was a surgical butcher. Fossil evidence on Triceratops' skull shows a chilling pattern. T-Rex would use her massive legs to pin the body, grab the armored frill, and use her neck muscles to literally decapitate the prey. Why? To reach the massive, nutrient-rich muscle hidden deep in the neck. But here is the darkest side of that power. In a world where the king could crush anything, the biggest threat was not a rival predator. It was another king. Why did we find T-Rex bones with T-Rex bite marks on them? Was it a duel or was it a dinner? To answer that, we have to look at the blood banquet. Royalty in the Cretaceous didn't just mean hunting others. In the world of the Tyrant King, being a family member sometimes meant being a backup plan. We like to imagine these creatures through the lens of modern documentaries, noble parents, a structured family, but the bones tell a much uglier truth. Throughout their 2.4 million year history, An estimated 2.5 billion T-Rexes lived and died. And in the struggle to be the part of 2% that reached old age, the king broke the ultimate taboo. Paleontologists have uncovered T-Rex skeletons marked with deep, unhealed gouges that match only one set of jaws, another T-Rex. This wasn't just a territorial duel. The patterns show active scavenging. When the environment turned harsh, the Tyrant King became a cannibal. Before you judge the monster, you have to understand his desperation. He was a prisoner of the survival trap. While the king was trapped in his own medical nightmare of gout and parasites, his prey were fighting their own silent wars. Fossil records of hadrosaurs like Tyrannosaurus reveal a shocking discovery. They were riddled with cancerous tumors. We find tail vertebrae fused by malignant growth. Imagine this prehistoric landscape. It wasn't a world of healthy giants. It was a valley of the sick. You had herd-living herbivores limping through the mud with terminal cancer, being stalked by a predator whose every step needle-sharp stab of agony. For a king who was too pained to sprint and whose throat was closing from infection, a fallen rival wasn't just a competitor, it was a miracle. A massive 6-ton source of soft, ready-made protein that didn't require a chase. Cannibalism wasn't evil, it was the only way for a broken king to keep his throne for one more day. How did a species defined by such immense suffering and a 90% mortality rate still manage to become the largest land predator in history? How did they grow so big, so fast, in a world that wanted them dead? The answer was hidden in the king's nursery. It's time, meet the Mother King and the secret of the 2-kilogram-a-day race. Before we close this medical file, we have to talk about the time trap. Most people think the age of dinosaurs was one single era where everyone knew everyone. But Earth's history is far deeper and more isolated. The Stegosaurus lived roughly 150 million years ago. The Tyrant King, however, didn't arrive until 68 million years ago. This is an 80 million year gap. In the cold math of time, T-Rex is actually closer to you and me scrolling through a screen today than he ever was to his Stegosaurus. And for the mothers of species, time was the greatest enemy. In 2005, a breakthrough in a fossil named B-Rex revealed medullary bone, a calcium reservoir that allowed these giants to produce eggs. Life for these mother kings was a brutal sprint. They endured the bone-deep pain of gout and the weight of an 8-ton frame, all while adding 2 kilograms of weight every single day during their teens. It was a life of high stakes, biological gambling. Only 2% of them ever saw their 30th birthday. Most died young, exhausted by the very power that made them famous. But the king did not truly die 66 million years ago. In a specialized study by Dr. Mary Schweitzer and John Azara, the impossible happened. They recovered ancient proteins from a T-Rex leg bone. When they compared the king's collagen to living animals, the closest match was not a crocodile or a lizard. It was the chicken and the turkey. T-Rex wasn't just a movie monster or a pain patient of history. He was a biological masterpiece that refused to vanish. Today, the Tyrant King lives in a smaller form, right in your backyard, pecking at dirt. So the next time you look at a chicken, don't laugh. You are looking at the direct, hungry descendant of history's most famous tragedy. The king is dead. Long live the king.